Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Game Things. I'm your host for the week, Ming, and today we're gonna start off by talking about Rockstar Games. So Rockstar Games has announced that they will no longer be releasing new major content updates for Red Dead Redemption Online. The reason for this is because they will now focus their resources to work on the highly anticipated GTA 6. While I do agree with Rockstar Games' decision to focus on GTA 6, I do find it weird that they are still releasing more content for GTA Online. Yes, they could just port over the content from GTA Online to GTA 6, but I personally would prefer for them to just fully focus on GTA 6 first, but what can you do? Speaking of GTA Online, now I'm gonna cover the content coming to GTA Online in the coming weeks. For GTA Online, there will be an expansion on the criminal careers of executive, biker, gun runner, and nightclub owner. So for those of you that are doing these jobs, you guys are in for some fun content. For you guys that aren't doing any of these jobs, you guys will also be getting some cool stuff as well, like new contact missions for you guys to try out, as well as some neat quality of life changes like a more convenient method to buy snacks and armor, as well as the ability to launch sell missions while in invite-only sessions. There will also be some balance changes that has been requested for a long time by the community, and it's finally coming to the game, so you guys can finally look forward to that as well. All in all, GTA Online is a pretty fun game where you can cause a crap ton of chaos, but at the same time, the game can get pretty boring as well, as all you ever do is go on missions, grind for money, and buy cool houses, vehicles, or guns. It's great and all, but just not my type of game. But if this type of game is up your alley and you have never played GTA Online before, then I do suggest you give it a shot. The next major news that we are going to cover is featuring the highly anticipated God of War Ragnarok. So God of War Ragnarok will be releasing on PS4 and PS5 on the 11th of September. Alongside its release, there will be a couple of versions that players can get, and each version will have something different. First, we have the standard version, and like usual, the standard version is just the base game. But for players that have the standard version on the PS4, by paying $10, you guys can upgrade to the PS5 version of the game. So pretty good if you're deciding to change consoles. Then we have the Digital Deluxe Edition. This edition features the full game, some extra in-game cosmetics, digital soundtrack, an art book, an avatar set, as well as a PS4 theme. Overall, nothing too interesting if you ask me. Then we have the Collector's Edition. This has some better stuff, including the game, a steelbook game case, a dice set, a 16-inch Mjolnir replica, and 2 Vanir Twins carving. If you are a die-hard fan and want even more collector items, then you can consider the Jotnar edition of the game. This edition will include everything in the Collector's Edition as well as 3 additional items, mainly a pin set, a Draupnir ring, and last but not least a cloth map. Some pretty cool stuff overall. If you do want these collector items, make sure to pre-order them or get it when the game is released. Now, if you're wondering if the game is worth getting at all, then let me tell you that you will definitely not regret your purchase if you are new to the God of War franchise. I highly recommend that you try it out, as it is a really good IP and all of the previous games were absolute bombs. And that's it for our major news segment this week. Now let's move on to our flash news segment, starting off with some newly revealed footage for some upcoming games. First off, we have Steelrising, an action-adventure game featuring an automaton going about facing off against enemies called the Titans. Visually, the game looks pretty good, and I like that when in combat, you can clearly see the character that you're controlling is an automaton, as she pulls off some pretty wicked poses that no human can achieve. However, the downside of doing so is that it kinda makes the combat feel clunky, as you can clearly see that it's not like a clean combo where everything goes smoothly, but I don't really think it's too big of an issue overall. All in all, the game looks pretty interesting and it's worth giving it a look, as I would say that it's pretty unique concept-wise. In any case, if you are interested in the game, it will be available on Steam, PS5, Xbox Series S and X on the 8th of September this year. However, if you pre-order the game now, you will get access and be able to play the beta on the 25th of August. So basically 2 weeks of early access. In conclusion, if you're really interested and can't wait for the game, then maybe you can consider pre-ordering it. Next, we are going to cover the upcoming pirate themed live service game, MMO, by Ubisoft, called Skull and Bones. Skull and Bones will officially be launching on the 8th of November this year. Other than the release date, we also got some new gameplay footage that I will be breaking down for you guys. So of course, like I mentioned earlier, this is a game featuring pirates. As you would expect, your main equipment in this case, since you're a pirate, would be your trusty ship. Based on what was shown so far, ships will be categorized into 3 different types. The first is the cargo ship. Cargo ship, as its name suggests, would allow you to hold more loot, but of course it will move at a slower pace. Then we have the navigation ship. This ship is basically the opposite of the cargo ship, as it moves faster but has lesser space for you to store loot. Then finally, we have the firepower ship. Firepower ship is all about dealing damage, but the downside is that it is slightly harder to control compared to other ships. Honestly, if you're really good at the game, then I really think firepower ship is the way to go, as it is just nice to just nuke down your enemies and get as much loot as possible using the shortest amount of time. Other than choosing what type of ship you would use, you will also have the option of choosing things like weapons and armor for your ship, which is pretty cool. Although the armor isn't too interesting as they didn't really go in detail, the weapons however had some pretty good variety, including things like cannonballs, rockets, ballistas, mortars, and even flamethrowers, so yeah, pretty sick. The game also has various events that players can take part in, including things like robbing merchants, completing quests, attacking forts, attacking other players, treasure hunting, and if you aren't into any of these, you even have the option to just farm for resources. All in all, the game looks pretty interesting, and although I didn't mention it earlier, you could in fact team up with your friends to play the game. So if you have a group of friends and are just bored of all the currently available games, maybe give Skull and Bones a shot when it's released. The next title we are going to talk about is a brand new title coming out from Supermassive Games that is part of the Dark Pictures Anthology series. This title is called The Devil in Me, and instead of the previous titles that has supernatural elements, this upcoming title will be a bit more normal as it features a murderer that uses various contraptions to do the killing. So pretty similar to the Saw franchise. In any case, games from Supermassive are all very story driven and are all great hits like Until Dawn and the recently released title The Quarry. So if you're interested in story based titles with a bit of horror and thriller elements, make sure to give The Devil in Me a shot when it's released this autumn on PS4, PS5, Xbox Series S and X, Xbox One, and PC. If storytelling ain't your type of game, and you just want to play some old school FPS, then this upcoming title might just be the right one for you. We will be getting a new RoboCop FPS in June next year. This new title will be called RoboCop Rogue City, and the game will be available on next-gen consoles as well as the Switch and PC. In terms of gameplay, the game is straight up a back to the basics FPS. Based on what was shown so far, all you have access to is just your basic pistol and nothing else, which honestly is a breath of fresh air considering how most FPS nowadays has a crap ton of stuff packed into them, like abilities and a huge variety of weapons. So it definitely feels good to just go back to the basics. All in all, the game looks decent and it's really a trip down memory lane for those that want to play the olden style FPS games. So if you're looking for something like that, then maybe give it a shot when it's out. Last but not least, for the flash news of this week, we have a rather unfortunate tale. For all you Heroes of the Storm lovers out there, Blizzard has officially pulled the plug and decided that they are no longer releasing new content for the game. Moving forward, all updates will only be for sustainability as well as bug fixes. While it is great that the game will still be playable, it is unfortunate that the game will no longer be having new content despite the fact that it was a decent mobile game that had a pretty large fan base previously. And unfortunately, the bad news doesn't stop there, as we have 3 delays this week, starting off with Hellpoint. Hellpoint, which was originally releasing this week for PlayStation and Xbox, will have the Xbox version release pushed back by 1 to 2 weeks. Well, at least the PlayStation version will still be releasing on time. Then we have Halo Infinite Co-op Beta, which has been delayed to sometime this week or next week. Initially, it's supposed to be released on the 11th, but I guess in this case, being pushed back by a couple of days isn't really that bad, although it still sucks, but hey, it could have been way worse. And when I say way worse, it's like our next entry Forspoken. Man, was I hyped for this game. Originally set to be released on May this year, the game got pushed back to October, and now once again it has been delayed and will only be released on the 24th of January next year. Although it really sucks that we have to wait even longer for this title that looks insane, I do hope that when the game is properly released, it will be completely polished with like as minimal amount of game-breaking bugs you can find as possible. And hopefully in the upcoming months, we won't have another delay announcement as well. That basically wraps up our delay segments, and now let's move on to our next segment covering some hyped up releases releasing this week. First, we have Garden Story, initially available on Switch and PC. This game will now also be available on Xbox Series S and X as well as Xbox One. Garden Story is a cute action-adventure game where you have to defend your community of vegetation by clearing out the infestation called rot. As you progress through the game, of course you will encounter bosses. While the bosses are well designed and all, it is a bit unfortunate as the bosses will get reused in the later stages of the game. The other minor downside of the game is that if you are solely focused on just clearing the story, you really won't interact much with the farming mechanic that's in the game, as it is introduced in the later phases of the game. And the whole reason why you interact with the mechanic is because it's a compulsory requirement to further the story of the game. But of course, if you play the game at your own pace without rushing down the story, then Garden Story actually has a pretty good amount of content to offer. All in all, the game is just a fun and cute action-adventure game that players can enjoy without feeling the adrenaline pumping through their veins like most other action-adventure games. The second title we are going to cover today is Loopmancer, available now on PC. Loopmancer is a 2D side-scrolling action roguelike game, so somewhat similar to titles like Skull the Hero Slayer and Dead Cells. But that's pretty much where their similarities end. While most roguelike nowadays have pretty cute and colourful art styles, Loopmancer straight up looks like a AAA title. Yeah, a AAA title. It's so similar to a AAA title that even the cutscenes are straight up what you see from a AAA title, and it looks really good. Honestly, the game looks so good that I personally am pretty excited about the game, and I might just try out the demo right after I'm done recording this episode. Anyways, if you're interested in roguelikes, then I highly suggest giving this game a shot just solely because of its amazing visuals. The third title we have for this week is Escape Academy, and to put it simply, it's basically the relatively popular escape simulator but with a bit more story to it. So Escape Academy is basically an escape room type of game where your task is to, well, solve puzzles and escape. But unlike most other escape rooms out there, the game actually has a full-fledged story with a cast of interesting characters as well. All in all, if you like escape games and are still waiting for new rooms in Escape Simulator, then this game would be the perfect fit for you. Whether you want to take on the puzzles alone or with a friend, the choice is completely up to you, and on top of that, the game is also available on a large variety of platforms including PS4, PS5, Xbox Series S and X, Xbox One, and PC, so you can play Escape Academy on your preferred platform. If you want to squeeze your brain solving puzzles and having a good time with your friends, then this would be the perfect game for you to get. The last and final title we have today is Rune Factory 5, available now on PC. Rune Factory 5 that was originally only available on Switch is also now available on PC, and of course it runs way better than on the Switch performance-wise. Gameplay-wise, the game is basically kinda like Stardew Valley, where you have a season mechanic, farming, combat, as well as marriage. So yeah, basically Stardew Valley. The only main difference is that the visuals of Rune Factory 5 features the typical JRPG art style. This then begs the question, is this game actually worth getting? In my opinion, I would say yes if you like Stardew Valley and just want to try something similar but different otherwise. If you don't like Stardew Valley, you could probably just skip this title, as the game really doesn't feature anything that is too unique mechanic wise or gameplay wise. This basically wraps up all our featured releases this week. Now we move on to our last and final segment, Free Things. This week, Epic Games Store will be giving out Idol Champions DLC Pack, Gladiators of the Black Pit, as well as Wonder Boy the Dragon Trap, so make sure to get them while it's still available. And with that, we have come to the end of our episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe and comment down below to tell us what other type of content you might want to see us cover. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you again in the next episode of Game Things.